Prologue, Dream and Nightmare. The story begins with Keith, one of the firstborn of the Slavari, reaching a burning village. She was too late to save it, which made her very sad, but at least the fires looked pretty, so that's something, right? What could have caused the fire? Woohoo, said a voice. Fowlane, another firstborn Slavari, one who had been very close to Keith, but whose soul had grown dark and twisted, entered. She told Keith that destroyers, minions of Prime Orders, had started the fire. She then promptly killed a dying man whom Keith was trying to save, and asked Keith to join her nightmare court. Keith, filled with anger and disgust at the very thought of joining this monster she once knew and loved, said in response, "No, thank you." Part 1. Gathering Heroes. Erstigolkin was a renowned Norn sculptor and warrior, well, ranger, but still. She and her pet wolf Garm had had enough of watching foolhardy Norn attack the ice brood outside of Holbrack head-on. They only bolstered Jormags, that's the ice dragon's ranks, by turning Icebrood themselves. Enough was enough. Air decided she would attack the Icebrood head-on, and hopefully kill the Dragonspawn, the champion of Jormag. Suddenly there was a knock on Air's door, and two Asura entered her lodge. The master Golomancer Snaff and his ingenious apprentice Zodja. They wanted Air to make a statue of Zodja's head, only 5 times larger than the real thing. Okay, Air thought this is a bit of a weird commission, but sure, money's money, I guess. Sometime later. When Air was finished with the statue, the likeness was uncanny, by the way, almost as if someone had copied and pasted it. Snaff told her of his new revolutionizing way to control golems with one's mind using laurels and power crystals. The statue would function as a new golem's head. Air then struck a deal with the Asura. In exchange for another statue, one of Snaff's head this time, free of charge, Air wanted the two Asuras' help in defeating the Dragonspawn. Snaff and Zodja agreed, and there was much rejoice. Somewhere in the Blaze Ridge Mountains, Logan Thackeray led his band of scouts in a mission to hinder a battalion of 300 Char. The Char was sent out to intercept a human trade caravan on its way to Ebonhawk. Logan and his merry gang managed to crush most of the Char under a tactically orchestrated rock slide blocking off a narrow canyon. Ritlock Brimstone, a Blood Legion soldier, took command of the few Char who had made it through the canyon and pursued the humans. After a long hunt through the night, the two groups finally clashed. They barely had time to start fighting though before a band of ogres bustled in. This was ogre territory after all. The humans and Char now had a common enemy. After a bloody skirmish, the only two left standing were Logan and Ritlock. Just as the two were about to finish each other off, Keith entered the scene out of nowhere. She had followed the whole thing from a distance. She told them that one of the ogres they had killed was Chiefling Igor, and that his father, Chief Kronon, would be mighty pissed at them as soon as he found his son's body. And sure enough, they were soon found by the ogre chief and his pack of hyenas. Luckily, the three heroes could escape down a dark crevice. Air, Snaff and Zodja finished the two golems, Big Snaff and Big Zodja, and the three adventurers and Garm headed out into the snowy wilderness. They reached the Dragonspawn's lair and faced many a corrupted creature there. The team battled through and finally managed to reach the chamber of the Dragonspawn. It was a horrible beast, a monstrosity of poorly drawn bones, mists and robes held together by foul magic. It called upon the power of its master to control these interlopers' minds. Even though Snaff's laurels blocked out most of the mind-altering magic, the dragon's presence was too potent, and the heroes had to make a courageous retreat. Back in Holbrack, and feeling rather like a numpty, Air once again vowed to destroy the Dragonspawn once and for all. She just needed some more fighters on her team. She decided the best place to look for heroes was where they all gathered, Lion's Arch. The deep dark crevice down which Logan, Ritlock and Keith had fallen eventually led them to a huge cavern deep underground. There were ruins of an old, long-abandoned dwarven village. The stone houses and pillars had been scorched by destroyers. The three adventurers even found a couple of live ones too. Luckily, Keith found an Asura gate among the rubble. Even more lucky was the fact that they managed to escape through it before the destroyers managed to destroy them. The Asura gate was old and faulty, however, and their destination ended up not being another receiving Asura gate. Instead, they got spat out in a lovely green Crichton meadow, probably somewhere in Keswick Hills, just 2 days west of Lion's Arch. Part 2, Slaying Monsters. In Lion's Arch, Logan and Ritlock ended up fighting each other over the ownership of Sahothin, once the sword of Prince Rurik of Old Ascalon. Ritlock wanted to take the Asura Gate back to the Black Citadel, and Logan would have none of it. Logan could not let this Char take the legendary sword with him to the Iron Legion capital, not even this particular Char whose life he had saved numerous times and vice versa. Thus, another fight to the death ensued between the two. One fought over an old heirloom, the rightful ownership of which both felt they had claim. Kind of like Ascalon itself, actually. Anyway, in the heat of battle, the two managed to set an entire theatre on fire, which led to the three of them, Keith included for some reason, being thrown in jail. The three soon found themselves involved in Lion's Arch gladiator scene. Gladiator games between prisoners or prisoners against monsters was considered prime entertainment within the pirate city. Their captor, Magnus the Bloody-Handed, the leader of the Lion Guard, the peacekeepers of Lion's Arch, who I haven't had time to draw, had given them a name. They were, for some reason, Edge of Steel. They defeated undefeatable teams and monsters of all manner of different kinds, and quickly grew insanely popular. So popular, in fact, that one day they got to fight in the presence of the monarch of Krita herself, Queen Janna. Logan, never before having seen his queen in the flesh, instantly fell for her beauty. Apparently that's pretty much all he cared about. He also got to meet his not-so-friendly brother Dylan Thackeray, who was a seraph royal guard of the queen. He received a token, a scarf from his queen, and swore to fight in her name. After that day, Logan decided to forever be a servant to his queen and to aid her whenever she called him. This popularity came with a price, however. Since they drew in so much money to Lion's Arch, the price to buy their freedom skyrocketed. Air, Snaff, and Zodja had seen some of Edge of Steel's fights, and Air had decided that they were the warriors she needed to kill the dragon spawn. However, she didn't have enough money to buy them out. She devised a plan. She, with the help of Snaff and Zodja, would defeat the undefeated Edge of Steel. They would then be the most sought-after team, and would help Magnus the Bloody-Handed battle the undead threatening the waters outside of Lion's Arch. This in exchange for Magnus letting Air hire Edge of Steel to fight against the Dragonspawn outside of Holbrook. So, Air, Snaff and Zodja sit down and study the fighting techniques of Edge of Steel. The day of the epic fight had arrived, the undefeated Edge of Steel against the newly formed Dragonspawn's Destiny. The fight was long and dreary, swelling back and forth, but in the end, when the dust settled, Air, Snaff and Zodja stood victorious. They had now won not only the glory of the fighting pit, but also the right to hire Edge of Steel as fighters against the Dragonspawn. Edge of Steel and Dragonspawn's Destiny merged and formed, you guessed it, Destiny's Edge. 2 weeks later, Destiny's Edge reached the lair of the Dragonspawn, and by a combination of ingenious golemancy, powerful magic, brute strength, and superb stacking, they managed to bring down Jormag's champion and somewhat secure the area north of Holbrook, much to the gratitude of Knut Whitebeard and the Norn. After this victory, the group went on to help Magnus the Bloody-Handed bring down Morgus Leith, the undead admiral of the Orion fleets outside Lion's Arch. This finally freed Ritlock, Keith and Logan from servitude. But Destiny's Edge did not stop there. They had grown to like each other, and they now had tasted Dragon Champion's blood. Nothing would stop them. Next, they headed to Ratasum to fight Primordus' champion, the giant mantis destroyer, the Destroyer of Life, who threatened to lead an invasion of the Asuran capital. The band of heroes were victorious. This victory made Destiny's Edge famous among the Asura as well. A huge party was held in Ratasum. Keith did not have such a good time though. A hand-shaped tumour had grown above her heart where Fowlane had touched her. It pulsated with festering love and hate. Inside Snaff's laboratory, Destiny's Edge cared for their friend as best they could. Out of nowhere, Fowlane, the very creator and the root of the corruption, entered. She, and only she, was the only one who could save Keith if she chose to be saved. In order for that to happen, however, Keith had to turn her love for Fowlane into hate, which she did. In the process of removing the corruption, Fowlane spoke of visions of the group's next battle. The dragon Glint was their next target. This time, they not only were to fight a dragon champion, but an actual dragon. Or were they? Glint had been a friend of humanity before, in Guild Wars 1, but had her allegiance shifted once more, perhaps? Was she again a servant of the Crystal Dragon? Part 3, Battling Dragons. The heroes travelled through the Crystal Desert, and after being mind-controlled and bewildered by Glint's magic, they finally arrived in the dragon's lair. After first trying to kill Glint, Destiny's Edge realised that she was actually trying to help them battle her master. His name is Kralka Torek. Glint was an oracle, thus she was able to read every creature's mind, including that of her master. This made her turn against him. So it was from Glint that Destiny's Edge learned that they were not up to fight against a dragon, but rather to fight an elder dragon, one who had just awoken and was on his way to Glint's sanctuary. Glint gave Ritlock a spear made from one of Kralkatorrik's own spines. The idea was for Glint to battle the Elder Dragon in the air, force it down to the ground, where Ritlock then would land the killing strike. Snaff also pitched in an idea. Similar to how the Golemancer used power crystals and laurels to control golems with his mind, a yoke of crystals, made from Kralkatorrik's own dried blood drops from when the Elder Dragon's last rose, were to be placed on Kralkatorrik's head. This yoke would be connected to a laurel worn by Snaff. The Asura would then be able to control the dragon's mind enough to keep it on the ground for long enough for Ritlock to use his spear. It would then be up to Logan, Air, Zodja and Kaith to hold back the inevitable Branded, the Crystal Dragon's minions, that would accompany it. Well, that was the plan anyway. Meanwhile, Kralkatorrik had just flown past the walled city of Ebonhawk, corrupting everything in its way, creating the Dragon Brand. Scores of corrupted Char and ogres from the plains of southern Ascalon now charged the walls. Queen Jenna and her bodyguards, Dylan Thackeray being one of them, happened to be in the city. Dylan fought as best he could outside his queen's tower, but was eventually slaughtered by Branded. Queen Jenna, being a mesmer of immense power, called on her champion Logan to come to her side and aid her. Logan, while the other members of Destiny's Edge were busy preparing for the most important fight ever, heard his queen's calling and left the others. The betrayal! He did manage to get to Ebonhawk in time to free the imprisoned Char beneath Ebonhawk Castle, and together Char and Human managed to fight off the seemingly never-ending Branded. Well, not really. It was actually Queen Jenna herself who used her ridiculously OP powers to summon an illusion of Kralkatorrik itself above the walls of Ebonhawk, ordering its troops away. So Logan saved the Queen, and the Queen saved Ebonhawk. Boom. Oh, and Logan from that day on wielded not his hammer, but his brother's sword, and he joined the Seraph. The battle raging in the Crystal Desert was an epic one. Destiny's Edge minus Logan, but with Glint, against the Elder Dragon and its minions. Glint did manage to put the mind control yoke on Kralkatorrik just before she was killed by her former master. Snaff, the genius that he was, did also manage to enter the dragon's mind and force it to stay put on the ground. However, when Ritlock ran with a spear raised to finish off the beast, the remaining members of Destiny's Edge could not quite hold back the minions that were trying to reach Snaff. If only Logan had been there. So in the end, Snaff got killed and Kralkatorrik managed to fly away before Ritlock had the chance to use his spear. After this crushing defeat, Destiny's Edge disbanded. Zodja, devastated by the death of her master, blamed Air for coming up with a plan that had led to his death. Air also felt she was to blame for Snaff's death. Ritlock was incredibly pissed off at Logan for just leaving, and Kaith did not manage to hold the others together. Thus, the legendary group that had grown famous across Tyria and that had stood as an inspiration to all, disbanded and would most likely never work together to battle the dragons again. Or would they? The end!